Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and we are here, like Randall Carlisle said the other day when we did his, we are here with a special guest. Yes, they are all special to us. We are here with Kayla Jensen. Kayla, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm super excited and very nervous.
Yeah. Well,
that's okay.
The nervousness it'll calm down. I promise you, it'll calm down. And we're going to talk about something that I think is a really, really good topic, and it is overcoming stigma. And you guys have heard me talk about the stigma on quite a few of our shows, and it is something I really have a hard time with. And I was one of those people as well, in the background, thinking thoughts and thinking of people who have battled addiction and drugs, that there's this certain type. And ever since my wife's battled the addiction and I've put myself into the addiction world, I have come to find out that is all bullshit. And we're joined today with the lovely Tiffany Nacarado. So Tiffany, thank you for being here with us again. You're starting to be a regular.
I know, and I love it.
I know, right?
I love it. Yep.
We're gonna
I'm glad to be here with Kayla. She's one of my best friends, so this is exciting.
I know. Yeah. This is really cool, and it's really neat for me because I've got to know Kayla a little bit because I've ran into her over at USARA while Janan was going there, and I think I've seen you at some of the other events. So
yeah,
it's really cool, the friendships and the relationships that I'm building from doing this show and getting involved in the realm of addiction. It is so flipping cool. And sometimes I get a little teary-eyed and emotional talking about it, but I tell you what, coming here to the studio on Thursdays and sitting down with people like yourselves is so frickin' incredible, because you guys are some of the most inspirational people I've ever been around my whole flippin' life. And I understand why, and it's because you guys have dug yourselves out of some dark, dark places. Mm-hmm. You look at life the way the majority of us should be looking at life. And the reason why we don't is because maybe we haven't hit that rock bottom. Maybe we've come close, but still, I know people who have come close to death and still come out to be assholes. I mean, seriously.
Well, some of us can be assholes sometimes.
Well, all of us
I'm definitely
can,
sassy.
Can be,
I just kicked her in the shin with my high heel.
I got kicked with a stiletto.
I like it. It really, again, it helps me understand a lot. And I've shared this on our shows before, that I went to an AA meeting with Janan years ago. And this guy gets up and he gets his 10, 15-year chip. And the first thing he says is, he goes, I wake up every day and thank God for making me an alcoholic. And I remember looking at Janan and leaning over and go, that guy is effing nuts. Why would he say that? Why would he thank God for that? By the end of his talk, I got a little bit about it. I understood a little bit more. Then watching my wife go through it and seeing where she's at now in her life, and being able to sit down in a studio and interview people like yourselves, I get it. I really do get it, because I wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for Janan's addiction. Mm-hmm. I would have never, ever thought about getting up, telling my story, doing a podcast, interviewing some of the most incredible people, like I said, I've ever met in my life. That's the blessing. Mm-hmm. That's the blessing.
Yeah, and during hardships, right, that's where we grow.
Yeah.
And we get to dig deep and learn about ourselves and get to be where we are. So anybody, even if you don't have a substance use disorder, you can still go through major hardships, right, and end up doing a lot of growth to be the person you are. So I've heard the same thing, that people are grateful to be an alcoholic or an addict or with substance use disorder. Mm-hmm. I would say for me, I'm just grateful to have hardships and to make it out, right? Because even like small little things today, or might seem small to other people, but they are huge to me, and it still like affects my life and and how I am today. So anyways, that's what I'm grateful for. It's November. What are you grateful for, Kayla?
I know. We just talked about gratitude earlier. I'm just grateful to be in a position to even imagine myself being here. Excuse me. As you were speaking, though, my mom, I remember the first time I went to jail and stayed, my mom said, my daughter's not a drug addict. Those are for homeless people underneath the bridges of the streets. And I mean, I went to jail in 2007 for my first time. And so 15 years later, this is still a topic and like a big thing for me. So I'm so grateful that I'm able to be here today to even share about it. So I love how this has already started. And I'm grateful that, for the hardships, because if I didn't have those, then I wouldn't be able to share them. And as much as I may not see that they help others, my friends show me that they help others, that it helps them too. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, we have to travel down some nasty roads. All of us do. That's part of life. Just think how boring life would be. And would we truly, truly be happy if life was just hunky-dory all the time? Where would we grow? There would be nowhere for us to go, because I am a true believer that you have to experience the sadness to learn how to appreciate happiness. And, it can go on and on and on. And society, I believe, has molded us to not be able to feel these feelings. It's wrong to feel these feelings. That's human nature. We're supposed to feel these feelings. We're supposed to go through this.
Yeah.
All the feelings.
Oh, yeah.
All the feelings.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. And it's really helped the growth. When I lost my job in 2009, I thought I was an incredible person. And after I started doing some deep searching, I started realizing, man, I'm really not the person that I really wanted to be in life. And it's because I got so caught up in my career. I mean, in a way, really, I was addicted to work. I was addicted to growing my career and moving up the ladder. And, I worked my ass off to get there. And I'm thinking all the things I left behind, just like even with the substance abuse, that kind of becomes your thing. And one day you realize how much you're leaving behind. And, addiction is an addiction, right? Doesn't matter what type it is. The brain fires the exact same way. But, I just started realizing I wasn't the person that I wanted to be, and I really needed to dig deep. And I started working on self-help books, started reading a lot more, which I never read, didn't like reading. And lo and behold, my wife gets addicted to alcohol, and that put me in a whole different level. And again, the blessings that come out of the hardships, because even with her addictions, I have learned so much about myself from that. And now I could get up and get my, I don't know if you call it support chip or whatever, and say, I'm grateful my wife was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I get where that guy's coming from umpteen years later, but I get it. So it's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, things
it's really cool.
Come into your life to help you relate to others, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have had that, like judging before I used to judge, right? Well, I mean, we all judge, but before I used to judge just parent or moms that would use while they were pregnant, right? And then I ended up doing that years later. So I put a stigma on them, and then and just how things just fall into place. And now, like, I have compassion and empathy towards moms, and I want to sit with them and just love on them. That's what I needed, when that was happening. So.
And it's crazy that you said that, Tiffany, because Janan's dad battled with addiction, and I remember a lot of the mean things she said. I mean, her mom and him came over to our house, and he wasn't allowed to come in. He had to go sit back out in his car, and 2 days later he died of an overdose. And then Janan ends up with the addiction. Now she understood what her dad was going through, because we don't understand. So, my gosh, Kayla, are you originally from here?
Yes, I'm born and raised. I grew up off of Wasatch Boulevard, and then have basically lived in Sandy my whole life. There was a little bit of a stint where I lived in Ogden, but mostly just in Sandy. So I love it actually. So I'm totally content being here.
So you went to Jordan High School?
No, I actually went to Brighton.
Okay.
So I was in the boundaries or whatever for Brighton when we moved, and so I just continued on the pathway up there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I dated a really cute girl from Brighton High School. I went to Bingham, so I grew up in West Jordan.
Okay.
We were on the west side.
Yeah.
But yeah. And
Awesome.
we almost connected even after school, but I went a different direction, and which I guess, again, I'm grateful because I got two beautiful daughters out of it, you know.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So what was family life like for you?
So I ultimately don't remember a ton, which is unfortunate. I have two older brothers. I have a half brother that I've never met, who is younger than me. But growing up, like I said, it was the three of us. My parents got divorced at a pretty young age. I was about 6. And again, don't remember much before that. I do remember that they both got married relatively quickly after that divorce. So that was kind of a weird transition for me. My mom married someone who was quite a few years younger than her. And then my father married someone who had 3 children, 3 boys. And so I was thrown into this mix of a blended family, being the only girl with 5 siblings, 5 other siblings. So that was all a transition that was very weird for me. And then just growing up, like in elementary school, I remember a lot of good things that I'm grateful for, but I also remember a lot of the things that I was like bullied for and stuff. And that's what I have hung on to over the years, which is unfortunate. But I also use that as like my motivation to help people and to not be in that situation again, to surround myself with people who uplift me as well. But starting from a very young age, like I said, I was being bullied. And so at about age 15 is when I started using, which, I mean, I just jumped right on in. So that was a lot for me. I met a friend, this friend of mine, and we decided that we were going to be best friends and set out on like this journey, and started using pills, Coricidin, Coldin, cough. And within like a month, we tried to end our lives. It was like our best friend pact.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I don't remember a lot of like exactly like the pain or anything going on at the time. I just remembered I wanted an out so bad, from the hurt that I was feeling. And I was seeking that out any way that I could. And so it started with those pills, like I had mentioned. And then I started.
Can I just stop you real quick?
Yes.
So you were saying, no, you're fine.
No,
this is great.
Yes.
Because I didn't know this, and I know you very well.
Yes.
Were you seeking out, because you were getting bullied, right?
Yes.
I did know that apart. But were you seeking out the friendship, and so any friend that, like, just gave you that attention, and that's how you got that bond with somebody, and then ended up doing the things.
So there was a girl specifically. She was the person I tried to end my life with. Leaving a class one day, it was our keyboarding class, and she asked me a question, and it's kind of like we stuck on to each other, and she asked me to walk home with her that day. And it was probably the first time I remember like someone actively like seeing me. And so from there, it was just like we hung on to each other, and we hung out almost every day. That was relatively short-lived, because we did try to, end our lives, but it was I found someone who trusted me, who liked me. It didn't matter what I looked like. When I was 15, I was overweight. I had red hair. I had braces. I was the first person probably in my elementary school to go through puberty. So I was made fun of a lot. I remember still even a nickname they had for me, And so she accepted me, and I felt accepted. And she had this bad girl past. She had been to treatment for an eating disorder, and so I don't know, I just clung on to her. And from there, I still am so grateful for that friendship. I know that I'm very grateful I'm still alive, and I'm so saddened at what I put my family through at that time. However, so grateful that I started my journey at that age. So she became my best friend. We hung out. All that started, and then after we tried to end our lives, I stopped using. I just kind of took a step back from everyone and started my sophomore year of high school, and I didn't have any friends. because she was gone. She wasn't there anymore. She's still alive today. That may have sounded bad, but she wasn't there in the school with me anymore. And so when I started my sophomore year, I like I said, didn't really have any friends. And so I started trying to find friends. I went to this party at Cottonwood High School.
That was my school.
Yeah. So I went to
I'm older than you. So.
But I went to this party, and, I didn't want to drink because I didn't, that just didn't seem like something I wanted to do. And so, but someone offered me cocaine. And it was a man. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it, and so from there, that's kind of where it started for me with my using heavily. It was like night and day almost. I did cocaine and it felt like I was popular. Men started to see me. I had money at the time. My parents were pretty wealthy. My dad is still very wealthy, owns and works every day of his life, owns his own business, and does all this. And so I had all this money and I was able to go out and buy all these drugs, and I thought it was acceptance. And then I started skipping school, and then I started doing all these other things, taking my mom's car, stole credit cards, and I got caught doing it by my mom and forging checks, and it was like a slap on the wrist, A police officer came over, and she's like, I want to press charges. And he's like, you're going to ruin her life if you do this. And she's like, okay, then I won't do it, And some years later, here I am, 8 felonies in. But at that time, my mom had this hope for me, that oh, my daughter's not going to do this. And so it was just like I said, a slap on the wrist. And so I just kept doing the things that I was doing. And so...
Do you look back at that time and wish that something bigger or more extreme was done?
I do, but I don't. I do because I wish that I wouldn't have had to continue and put myself and my family through the things that I put them through.
Yeah.
But also, I've learned so much through everything I've gone through that I wouldn't take it back.
Yeah.
So,
what we were saying.
Yeah, so unfortunate that everything I put my family through, so much. And on the opposite end, I'm where I'm at today because I did those things and because my parents didn't hold me accountable. Because if I would have gotten held accountable when I was 15, 16 years old, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today because my life would look so much differently.
And I'd like to pause you for a minute. You were saying, okay, your parents divorced at age 6, and then they got remarried, and you had these new siblings come in. And the way it sounded to me is it's not like you really had trauma or anything going on in between that time, other than separation of parents, which at a young age, at 6 years old, that could be some trauma. But something that I've heard from other guests, and one of our guests said, I was told as a child I was to be seen, or I was not to be heard but seen, or something like that. I'm probably saying it backwards. And then you said that you felt accepted when you met this friend, that you were finally seen as someone. Do you feel like that was kind of and being bullied, I know that can kind of push you away, because I was teased a lot when I was a kid because I was crippled. I had the Forrest Gump brace on, I had the platform shoe, walked with a limp because my leg was straight all the time, and I got teased a lot. And I know Janan was bullied a lot when she was a young girl. And I really do feel that some of our kids get pushed into the wrong crowd because they do feel like misfits. That society, we have our own little teeny groups, right? I don't know if it was, I'm sure it was in Cottonwood, but at Bingham, you had your jocks, you had your stoners, you had your nerds, and you had these little groups. And I mean, I know kids got picked on, but I don't think they got picked on as bad as they have back in Janan's days, probably your days. I think the bullying is a lot worse nowadays, especially because of the social media and different things. But do you feel like that's kind of what did draw you into, using? Because like you said, you started getting attention from guys, and you were doing cocaine, and you felt like, hey, I'm someone now, right? When you didn't feel like you were anyone before.
Yeah, so you mentioned trauma growing up. So I did endure some trauma.
Okay.
I did kind of skip over that. But I faced some trauma with some step siblings of mine. And so that was difficult. And then just even some of the like emotional abuse from my dad's ex-wife, and just like specific events. I remember just feeling like left out and excluded from the family.
Okay.
So I was seen, but I was not seen for me. I felt like I was seen as something else.
Got it.
So
important.
yeah, and it
So
is.
important.
And so, yeah, but like you mentioned, like the growing up and then getting the attention from men, like, yeah, that's completely what I sought after. And it was always like, so my family's really big into sports. My dad has been a coach. My brother's a coach. Both of my brothers are. And so like that was their thing growing up. And then I was the girl. And so I was like, dolls and all this stuff. And so I kind of, you know, that was like a barrier and a gap for me and my brothers and my dad. And then, you know, just being thrown into a family with more boys, you know, it was just kind of like, I felt like I was the outcast and there wasn't really a spot for me. And so that's what I was kind of searching for. And it came out in different areas because, I mean, you can find yourself or find whatever you're looking for, not by going to drugs, but that's what I did, you know?
Right,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think for a lot of us, it's just the direction we go because we think it's okay. I mean, we were talking about it on a show yesterday. No one chooses to be an addict.
Yeah.
Now, maybe once you're in deep, you're choosing whether you want to stay there or not. But we don't. I know for a fact Janan didn't wake up one day and go, I'm going to be an alcoholic and I'm going to be the best damn alcoholic. I'm going to destroy everyone around me, everything around me. It just doesn't happen that way, right? You kind of start off and, you know, I started off, I didn't even smoke pot till I think senior year in high school, and we were almost graduated before I even tried pot the first time. You know, I was working construction in Colorado the first time I tried cocaine. And to me, I wasn't doing it because of things that's, anyway, I don't believe I was, things that was happening in my life. It's just like, hell, man, let's try something fun. Everybody says it's fun. Let's see how fun it is. You know, and then you're going, gosh, this is pretty fun. Yeah. You know, when you start going to parties and you're like, oh my gosh, the party's escalated. Now I'm really having fun and I enjoy having fun, right? I could have went down a totally different road as well. And it still amazes me how we all go in like these different directions when it comes to that, because any one of us who didn't go that direction could have went that direction just that easy.
Mm-hmm. And still can.
And still can.
Yes,
absolutely
100%.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So, started using cocaine and had like immediate results of like searching and fitting in. I fit into these people. It may have only been because I had drugs and money, but like at the time that was acceptable for me because I had been searching for it for so long. So continued to use cocaine, still this money, not get in trouble for it. And then I remember I needed to go get some more and I made a phone call and they're like, we don't have any of this. Guys went to jail. And so I was like, all right, started freaking out, panicking. And then that evening I got hooked up with some other gentleman. We went to go buy some drugs. And that was the first time I had seen heroin. Had no intention of using it, had no idea what it was. I had no idea about like substances before I started using them, which is really weird considering where I'm at right now, you know?
And how old were you?
When I did...
When you went and found heroin?
16.
16.
So still the sophomore year then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this was all like sophomore year from beginning to like December of my sophomore year. So just a couple of months of my high school career. And so I went and met with this gentleman. He gave me some heroin and he's like, no big deal, just bring it back tomorrow, we can exchange it. And I was like, all right, cool. So I had
have that.
Yeah, I was like, no big deal, whatever, you know.
That's almost like keep your receipt, right?
Yeah, seriously, yeah. So I mean, looking back at it now, like, he knew it was gonna something. Yeah, he's like, I'm getting this girl right now.
Don't do that.
So So I went home that night and I did heroin. I mean, I watched him do it in my car, and I went home and I did it. After I finished my cocaine, I did my heroin, and I essentially never looked back. Within about a month, I was probably doing it several times a week. Within 2 months, I was probably doing it several times a day. And so that brought me to the next year, February-ish, and I stole my mom's car and stole her credit card and went with that female, that girl from my previous story, and we went and bought all these drugs, and my mom was like, just come home. So I went home, and again, it was like a slap on the wrist. She took my cell phone and I had it back the next day, and it's like, you know, I don't know if that was a call for help or what it was, but it was, you know, like, I guess it was a stepping stone to continue my criminal behavior, because so that was February of that year. I went to treatment the end of that school year. And so it was really just like a lot of like back-to-back events of no one really knowing what I was doing or what was going on. I do know that I was taken to primary children's by my mother because she was very concerned. And at the time they said that, well, we don't really know what she's using. These are the substances she's testing positive for. You should take her to uni. So I went to uni, you know, and then I went to a residential treatment center. I got out, went back to the same high school. And so I was just like, again, the same thing. I had no idea what I was doing. My family didn't really know what was going on. They had their whole idea of like what substance use was. And of course, not their daughter. Their daughter could not be doing this, you know? Yeah. I mean, when they found out I was using heroin, I was surprised my mom didn't have like a heart attack at that time, you know, because it was such like no, who wants to hear that their 16, 17-year-old daughter is using heroin, you know? With a needle, like they found that on me. How scary to be a parent and find that, you know? And then I turned 18. So once I started getting in trouble as an adult, I went to jail. And I remember the first time I went to jail was about a month after I turned 18. And I got arrested on Trapper's Loop with my boyfriend at the time. He was speeding, and they searched the car. And I had no idea about my rights back in the day at this time.
Now you do.
Now I do. I know that would have ended up very differently if I would have known then what I know now. So I went to jail, and I went to Weber County Jail. I got arrested on 2 counts of possession. My boyfriend at the time bailed me out. And it was like jail was traumatizing, but it was not at all what I expected. I remember the officer was like, Halloween was last month, because I had just like mascara just pouring down my face. I was like, I'm going to jail.
Alice Cooper look, huh?
Yeah. And he's like, Halloween's last month, you know. But again, I was in and out, so it was like no consequences for my actions. And then the next day, I was on the phone meeting the drug dealer again, you know. My boyfriend was not a user at the time, so he again was like very naive to the situation and was like, I believe you, you're just doing it once, you know? And so that was not helpful for my situation. So that was November when I turned 18. My parents seeked out some treatment for me at a place in Sandy, and then we called Discovery House, and I got put on Suboxone, and that was my first encounter with medication-assisted treatment. I was in high school, so I was 18, you know. Again, had no idea really what I was getting myself into. I would show up at Discovery House and dose every day, and then that lasted about a month, and I stopped. I don't really know why I stopped, but I just continued to go and use, you know.
Used with the Suboxone?
Yeah, so from what I remember, I don't remember specifically, like, oh, I went and got it and then used, but I do remember it was like a day would go, and then I'd go and get my Suboxone, and then 2 days would go, and then I would try to go, so there was very inconsistencies with it.
So explain for our listeners what the Suboxone is, because
yeah.
is it like an antabuse for alcoholics, that if they take it and then they use, it gets them really sick or it could kill them? Is it the same type of thing?
So I would have no experience with antabuse or like exactly what it is, but the Suboxone, it's the antagonist, so it blocks you from being able to get high, I believe.
Okay.
I'm looking at Tiffany to make sure because I know I don't want to say anything wrong on it. But so you take it daily, and it dissolves. It goes underneath your tongue. Depending on your situation, you work with whomever at the clinic, and you get put on the right milligram, and then from there you can taper off. And I mean, people are on it for years.
And they're successful.
Yeah, for their life. There's no amount of time. I mean, to specify an amount of time for medically assisted treatment, I mean, that would be, in my eyes, foolish.
And no side effects or anything like that. It kind of helps. Doesn't it help change the brain to fire differently or something like that?
With cravings, right? And then
okay.
So I think it also, I mean, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor, but like I think for me, mindset is a huge thing. The difference from being on Suboxone, like I was just saying, and being on methadone several years later, utilizing Vivitrol, utilizing naltrexone, I've tried all those different things. So it was really for me mindset. I know that Suboxone helped with my withdrawals. Over naltrexone. Naltrexone does not help with that.
For you.
For me. Well, yeah.
Yeah, because everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
Some people it works for, some people it doesn't.
Yeah, because Kayla just named off a whole bunch of different tools right, to help her, the medicated assisted treatment, which I love her story. And she shares it a lot about using MAT, medicated assisted treatment, and different things, and it's not that one is better than the other. It just one worked better for her at the time, right?
Okay. Again, mindset for me. All different areas of my life, and who knows what would have worked differently at the time, So I think, there's so many options, and so I am grateful that I was willing to try another one, because just because one didn't work well for me doesn't mean that another one wasn't going to, and it did. So that was great. And so there's all these different things, and there's so many options out there, and It's
almost kind of like I don't want to say bass backwards, because it's almost like when we do get addicted to drugs or alcohol, it's like it gives us that feeling, then we stop getting that feeling, so we go to something different to get that feeling back, right? It escalates. So even coming off, it's almost the same type of thing, right? It's just finding the right one to help get you to where you need to be. Yeah. Am I looking at it the right way? I mean, it kind of switches roles.
So I don't have personal experience using MAT.
Okay.
But Kayla does, and so she can talk to that. Do you think it's switching roles, Kayla?
So for me, I don't feel like it was, because I did not know how to stop using without some sort of assistance. I had been to treatment, I had been to jail, I had been to prison, or I have been to prison at this time when I first started with Suboxone. That was not the case. But for me, it was that I needed just that, like, helping hand to walk alongside me, not to be like, oh, I'm getting you high, but hey, you can get through the day without going to get a substance. You can. And so, like, for me, several years later, utilizing methadone, instead of going to get heroin and being well for 3 hours, and during that 3 hours, what am I doing? Trying to go get more drugs. I wasn't productive at all. So for me to go and get my methadone dose in the morning, that gave me like 24 hours at least, to go out and do all these things, go to treatment, go to school, go visit my daughter, do whatever those things that I was doing. To do that, I didn't need to constantly go and search for the next substance, and so I utilized it in that way. And so it wasn't a crutch for me. It was like, you can get through these events, you can get through the day, and I'm gonna help you until you can do it by yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yes. So
15 years apart from Suboxone to methadone, correct? Roughly.
Yes.
How were you treated when you were getting Suboxone? Did I say it right? Suboxone.
I don't know if it's. I don't know if it's
Suboxone, but I hear you.
I hear it both ways. It's just like USARA. I mean,
I know, right? Tomato. Yeah.
Okay, so
we live in Utah. We speak differently.
Exactly.
Oh, and then I have my whole different way that I speak, so it's okay. But so back then, right?
Yes.
When you were getting that MAT treatment, how were you treated in the professional field? So the people that were giving you the prescribing that medicine, and then also your family, and to fast forward to the methadone in the facility and people around.
So, well, a huge age difference, first of all. And at the time, I was an adolescent, or not technically. I was 18, but my parents were in there. I was on their insurance. I was on all these things. And so they were in there with me. And so I almost felt like they were just like big brother watching me, and I had to like say and do all these things.
Were your parents?
Yes, my parents.
Okay.
So my parents went into the facility with me. And then I just wasn't honest. I didn't want my parents to know, first of all. So again, if I would have known then what I know now, it would have gone very differently. But I, again, just didn't feel seen. It was like, here's the problem, not what's going on. Treat the symptom, like treat the disease, but like not the symptoms, you know?
Talk.
Yeah, there was no talking. When I was on methadone just previously, I saw a counselor and I did all those things, and I was in treatment. And when I was on Suboxone, I didn't have that. I didn't have a counselor there. And so there was just a lot of different changes over the years that I'm hoping all of the clinics or, that they utilize now.
So the biggest change you've seen now, there's more of a treatment plan, not just treat the symptom with a medicine.
Yes.
There's more.
Trauma informed.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, before we stop for a quick commercial break, I really think recovery centers are starting to get that. I know when we had Corner Canyon here, it was Corner Canyon Behavioral. Now they've changed themselves to Corner Canyon Health. And I think a lot of places now are starting to go, like you said, we're not actually treating the symptom, When Janan's public defender called me once and said, hey, the courts are getting tired of her coming through. They're getting close to throwing her to the point of the mountain. And he goes, what do you suggest? And I'm like, she needs to go somewhere where somebody can get inside her. Because the only reason she's doing what she's doing is because there's something inside that's causing her to go this way. And I really, really felt that from the very beginning. And of course, now I've heard it many, many times that the alcohol, the drugs, that's just the Band-Aid. But they're just covering something up. They're just covering the pain up, what's causing, the pain that's inside. They're just using it to numb that, but it's not fixing the system, the issue. Right? So I think more recovery centers are starting to get that going, okay, we know it's not the drugs and alcohol. That's just a cover. What's really going inside you? What's happening? What's going on in that head of yours? What pain are you holding on to? And,
Or stop shaming.
Yeah, shaming.
Right? We're here to talk about
exactly.
stigmatizing. So stop. Let's just stop and let's just talk as a human, right? And see how people are feeling, what happened. Kayla, I'm going to, just before we go on break, I want to go back because this is a good point. When you're talking about that you were, you didn't have a group of friends, right? You were getting bullied and all that. And then you were attracted to this female that wanted to walk home with you and stuff. She's seen you, right? Yeah. That's just same with people with substance use disorder or anything that they're going through. We just want to be seen.
Absolutely.
Stop pointing fingers and just see.
Yeah.
Just see humans, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what we're going through, we're still human.
Being bullied, having red hair, braces, just see the cute girl.
That's just part of it. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's take this chance right now. We're going to stop for a quick commercial break. Come back. We're going to let you finish going through your story, and I'm really though excited to also get into the stigma part of things because, again, I was one of those guys, one of those people as well. I'm the one that was pointing the finger and not allowing people to be seen. I did that with my wife. I did it with my wife. She just wanted to be seen, and I wasn't giving her that opportunity because, again, I didn't know the correct way of going about it. So, guys, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you know what to do after being in a car accident? Are the insurance companies going to take care of you? Hi, I'm attorney Rick Heaton with the Law Office of Bobby Udall. I will help you through the process and answer all of these questions. I give every single client my cell phone so they can talk to me whenever they need. Let me deal with the insurance company so you can focus on getting better from your injuries. Call me at 385-330-0226. Again, my cell phone number, 385-330-0226. Don't call the insurance company first. Call attorney Rick Heaton at 385-330-0226.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Good morning, this is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street, or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffytown is a family-owned and operated business still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffytown stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whipped-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffytown and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account. And we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffytown can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer pre-packaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone, and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com. That's taffytown.com to find out more about the products and services that Taffytown offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction. Again, we are here with our special guest, Kayla Jensen, and our special guest co-host, Tiffany Nacarado. So ladies, thank you so much for being here. It is so awesome to have you guys here, and I was really getting into your story. I don't know if you could see, I was just like focused on what the heck you were saying. It's so cool because the guests that come on the show, it's like their stories are the same, but they're not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, and I don't even know if that makes sense, but it's so flippin' true. You know, everyone that's come on, we've all kind of gone through our own journeys, and maybe some of them have started out the same, but they've not ended the same, if that does make sense. So anyway, at the beginning of the show, we were talking about the stigma part of things. And during our break, I shared a little bit about what happened with my wife at a hospital. You know, how they see her past record, and because she had been at the emergency center a few times because of her alcoholism, now that she's in there for something different, they automatically assume it's still the alcohol when she had been sober for like a couple months. And I think that probably was the very first time my eyes started opening a little bit more, because I remember when they were wheeling her to go do some tests, and I was next to the little bed as they were wheeling her, and I walked past that doctor, and I didn't say, I said the F word, definitely. I'm like, oh, she's effing drunk, huh? That's how pissed I was.
Yeah.
Because they didn't even want to look at it. They just automatically assumed. And It sounds like you kind of ran into the same stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to get emotional already even thinking about it. The hospital setting, it makes it so hard to be honest and to be truthful when you get stigmatized. Like I had mentioned, I had overdose. I went to the hospital when I was 15. I have suffered many other overdoses throughout my use. I've had abscesses that I've gone to the hospital for and was just treated like garbage. You know, an abscess is an infection on your skin and it's sensitive. And I had a doctor trying to cut it open without it being numb and like touching it and telling me to stop crying because I'm going to scare the other patients. And I'm like, you're cutting my arm open. And, you know, and it was just like, I felt like dirt. That's all I can describe for that.
Yeah.
And then like specifically hospitals where I felt like I should have been treated so well and been so welcomed. It was such a great experience having my children. I had my daughter in 2017. Which I'm so grateful for. I went to jail and I found out I was 6 weeks pregnant, and then went to a treatment center, graduated a couple days before she was born, so that's awesome. And so when I went to have my daughter, I was super honest with them throughout all of it. I was like, I used heroin and meth. I was an IV drug user. I've smoked this many cigarettes, like specifics, and was just so open with them because like this was another human being I was growing inside of me. And so when I had my daughter, it was my mom and my brother in my room. And she was born and they took her immediately over to check her vitals. And she started doing the little, like, she just came out of the womb. She had like those spastic movements. And I heard one of the nurses say, oh, those are the withdrawals. And I was just like shattered. I was like, I'm in this room by myself. I mean, my mom and my brother were there. My now husband was not there with me, unfortunately. And so, like, I just felt, again, so unseen. And it was just like, this is the opiates, this is the withdrawals. And it's like, nothing about me. And I was completely honest. And so, I mean, that was 2017.
Because it wasn't withdrawals. Because you were in treatment.
Yeah,
you
hadn't used or anything.
Yeah, I hadn't used. I was in jail. I was super honest with them about it. I found out I was pregnant in jail, like I said. And normally, when you find out you're pregnant in jail and you're an opiate user, they put you immediately on methadone. Like, no questions asked. And I did not find out I was pregnant in time within that withdrawal symptoms, within that period. And so they didn't put me on methadone. So I'm also very lucky that my withdrawals did not, cause me to have a miscarriage. So I was very honest with them. And I, like, went through all the, first time probably I was ever that honest with someone. And it was just kind of shot, like, oh, nope, this is the withdrawals. This is this because of my history. And it's like, how am I supposed to feel comfortable coming to you and talking to you?
So they were already basically labeling your baby a crack addict baby.
Yeah.
In a way, right?
Yeah. And at that same hospital stay, as I was walking out, they handed me a bottle of pills of narcotics to take. And I'm like, awesome, but I don't want to take these. I was drug testing for whatever. I don't remember what I was drug testing for at the time. But I was like, I don't want to take these. This isn't what I want, and I was confident in that. And so it was just really unfortunate in that situation. And then like I said, I have an 8-month-old, almost 9-month-old, or, oh my gosh. How old is he now? Oh my gosh, he's born in February. Yeah. So he's almost 9 months, and so cute. But I had him in February, same hospital, and I've been in recovery now for over 4 years, and so when I had him, they have all my history, I guess, of all prescriptions I've used, from who knows what, since the time I was 18. And the nurse comes in after I have my son, and it was a very, for me, traumatic birth. And she was like, so you have a history of meth use? And I was like,
wow, where did that come from?
I'm like, yes, I do, but what do you mean? And she's like, well, your son's gonna have to stay here. And I'm like, and it all came down because we were going to stay an extra night to get my son circumcised the next day. Mm-hmm. And so they check all these procedures and stuff. And that's great. I love that they are trying to protect my child. But the fact, I don't understand why my meth use would have been logged as a prescription. So I was appalled. And I was very upset. It took me back to a time where if I would have been using, I would have lashed out. You're going to call me on this, and kind of put me in that spot where I'm like, I'm not being trusted again, and it's I've been completely honest with you guys again with everything that I've taken during this pregnancy. And now I'm being, come at like this or whatever. And so it was really hard for me. And what it ended up being is that they had it in there for my methadone use, that I was on methadone. And again, I was super honest. Yeah, years ago. My last dose of methadone was 2019. And so, almost 3 years ago, you know what I'm saying? And so to have someone just come in and question me again in a hospital, and it's I felt like well, to be honest, I felt like DCFS was going to come in and they were going to take my son because I have
geez.
already had a DCFS case. My daughter was removed from my care for 8 months. And so that, like, all these things, like, that's so traumatizing. And to even knowing what I know now, I mean, because my son's not not very old, like, it was still like I felt unseen again. I felt like I was that piece of dirt and I wasn't being seen. And like all this work that I've done over the years, and one comment like that can take it all away, you know?
Yeah.
And so it makes it so hard.
Yeah, and I want to share. So I was with Kayla, not there at the hospital, but through this whole process, right? She has Paisley, her daughter. I hope you don't mind.
No, Paisley and Axel.
Yeah, Paisley. She has Paisley, and it was traumatizing, right? And then she had DCFS case and all this. And then she's so excited. Her and her husband have this cute family with Paisley, and then they get pregnant again. So excited for this baby, and they've done all this work, and they're just ready to look forward and not behind. They weren't even like
no more looking in the rearview mirror. Yeah,
they are this healthy, cute family, right? And striving to be just, I guess you would say normal. What's normal? But do you guys say we do kind of try to be normal sometimes.
Yeah, whatever that looks like.
But just so excited for this birth, and I call her to see how she's doing and how it went, and she's bawling, and I'm like, oh, you're bawling because you're happy? Like I really thought
I thought it was happy tears. Yeah,
that was not the case, and that pisses me off that my friend got robbed of that moment because of something she did years ago, and because whatever was listed in the computer. Like let's move forward. Why are we keeping the more we move backwards, right, and keep squashing, like, this is a beautiful moment, and they tried to squash her moment. She still has this beautiful, she had some beautiful moments there and stuff, but that really, like, being stigmatized for something that you did years ago or even yesterday just puts another, like, tries to smash it down smaller.
Absolutely.
Not healthy.
It's the assumptions, and what's crazy, before they even, I mean, before, I would think being at the hospital, they could go, you know what, let's just double check things. This was her record. Let's take some blood.
Yep.
Because your blood work would have came back freaking great.
Didn't you offer that too?
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah. But instead, they just assumed because of that past. And that is something, again, I really have a hard time with. And I've said this on the show many times before. You know, and again, I'm just as guilty. You go downtown, you see the drug addicts and the homeless, and you're like, why don't you get your shit together? You know, give back to society, get yourself back in the community. You get people like yourselves who bust their ass to get in recovery, make something of their life, and you're getting your life back on track. And then you're out there doing what you can to start giving back to society, make something of yourself, to make yourselves going, okay, that was my past, this is who I am now. And then no one's giving you that opportunity. So what happens to a lot of them? They go back to what they know again, right? Because they've not been seen, correct? So we want them to get their shit together, but then we turn around, we throw them right back out on the streets. In a way, right? That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
I also just, I need to take this opportunity because talking about people that might be suffering with substance use and are unsheltered, both people that suffer with those things they touch our hearts because we both have been there. And and so I just want to say really quick that it doesn't matter if you've done the work or not done the work or where you are, even though you're right, even all types of people deserve to be seen. Right?
Yes, and I'm glad that you're saying that,
and
Tiffany.
I just had
yes.
to say that because
no, and I'm glad you did.
We don't earn, but we do deserve, no matter what we do, right?
Yeah. Well, again, it's like when Janan and I went to that protest for that sober living house.
I remember.
You know, that's someone's, and this was going to be a female house. That's someone's daughter or mom or aunt that's going through there. There's people that love them. Just because they're not seeing it, what if it was their loved one that was going through it? You know, and again, yes, I mean, we've got a homeless gal that kind of comes around where Janan and I live, and we've kind of adopted her as one of our friends. And you know, the girl texts Janan all the time and says, hey, I was able to go find somewhere where I can be warm at night, you know, and we've offered her rides to different places, you know, to get her out of the weather and different things like that. And we do see her, you know. And I remember we gave a ride and dropped a guy off at a bus stop once when I was making a truck payment. And I come out and Janan's talking to this guy and they're having a cigarette and he's got this bag and the guy was just released from prison. And he was doing everything he could not to go to the area of town that got him in prison in the first place.
Awesome.
And he's like, I don't know how to get to where I need to go. Well, Janan, knowing the bus schedule like she does, because she has to take the bus everywhere almost, she knew where to go.
Awesome.
And she's like, can we take him? Now, years ago, you're like, you want me to put this frickin' convict in my vehicle with my wife here? Oh, hell no. But I'm looking at this guy, and I could really feel him, and I'm going, yeah, where do we need to take this guy? And he jumped in the truck with us, you know, and then I think Janan even gave him a couple extra cigarettes, you know, just so he could have a cigarette. Again, he was seen, and that's all he was asking for. He's like, just, I don't want to go there.
That little shift.
That little teeny shift, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, no, you're good. As you were talking about the sober livings, my brother lived in Draper for a long time, and he got approached about a sober living moving in next door, and he was like, absolutely, like 100%, let's do it, you know, like I have no qualm in this, you know, and I believe he said he was probably one of the few people that didn't have a problem with it, and he's like, because of you, I was open to that, you know, and this is my brother who LDS missionary, is a principal, vice principal, like, you know, all these things, and so like we've struggled to bond because of my use, you know, so to see that even though how crappy I was over the years in some of these areas, like that I taught him something as well and he's utilizing it in his life, is awesome. And
see people,
right? to see people, and like my brothers are seeing me, like we were talking about like overcoming the stigma and stuff, and like even with my family, overcoming that stigma or being in recovery. We mentioned that, I mentioned, not we, it's just me over here, that my daughter was removed, and that DCFS case, you know what I'm, sorry, lost my train of thought there, but DCFS case, and my parents were pissed, right? Like, of course, who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
And my now husband, we were just engaged at the time, who we had met using, so my parents already didn't like him, you know. It's kind of you're pulling her down, even though I had all these years of drug use and prison and all that, you know, it happened to be his fault now, which we've all moved past on that aspect. But at the time, you know, like they wanted what was best for me and for my daughter, you know, and so my brother and his wife took my daughter, and so they had the custody of her, the guardianship or whatever, for those 8 months. And for some people, they're like, oh, great, it's your family that had her, and it's like, oh, yeah, it's great. My daughter was very loved and taken care of, but the gap that was in my family, I didn't speak with my family for several months. Like, who wouldn't be pissed at me, you know? Like, but then also seeing me is different, but they didn't see me at the time. They just saw what I was doing wrong. And so working through that and like building that trust, because DCFS at the time too was like, you're not going to do this. Look at your track record, the courts, everyone. It was a long finish line for me, a distant finish line. And so it was really hard at first, and through like the consistency, and I was on methadone at this time. And so at the time, my parents and my family were like, that's not really sober. And I sought out methadone. Sorry. I sought that out because I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go back to jail. I didn't want to go back to prison. I didn't want to go back to like detoxing on the street or whatever. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to get on methadone. And I did that. Me and my husband did. It took us a couple of appointments, but we made it there. And it gave us gave us that time to be able to do the things I needed to do for DCFS without having to go and constantly search for heroin. I used heroin and methadone for about a week in that process, and then I really just like leaned on my clinic that I was going to. And so that was like my treatment at the time. And then I utilized other services. Like I went to treatment at House of Hope. I was in family recovery court. Obviously I had my DCFS case, and I really just worked to USARA. Yes, at this time. And I will get to that because USARA is a huge part of my recovery and overcoming that stigma. But all of that combined, I was building my network and building this like tribe of troops to like present to the courts. I remember feeling so like singled out. My Eric, he's my husband, he was in jail. He went to jail for 30 days during this time, and I went to a family team meeting, and a recovery coach from USARA went there with me and was like, nope, you guys aren't going to talk down to her. You guys, you know, and was like totally on my side. And it was a huge moment for me. You know, I knew the coach from prison, and so like we already had that bond and stuff. And so it was just really cool to see someone who like didn't care what my family had to say and just backed me up and was like, okay, I hear what you're saying, and now you're gonna hear what I say. It was really cool to see that. It was probably the first person I was closest with that I saw stand up to my dad. So it was kind of a cool situation. You know, and now I'm able to like voice my feelings to my dad now several years later, which is really cool. But facing that stigma of the methadone, not being sober, well, you have to go and take it every day so you're not sober, or it's antagonism. Yeah, like you depend on it. If you don't have it, then you'll get sick. And yeah, that's all true. That is true.
Yeah.
And there were times where I didn't take it in enough time, and I did suffer through some of those withdrawals. And once I did take it, it helped, and I will admit that. And I will also stand, like, I got married, I got custody of my daughter, I got an apartment, I got a car, I got a job, like all these things. And I did that all while taking methadone, and like it was awesome. It was
just a stepping stone towards where you needed to go, right?
Yes. And for me, that's what it was. It was a stepping stone. And now for some people utilize it for the rest of their lives, and I fully support that and respect that. I support any pathway of recovery because it's taken me so many. But specifically with methadone, I got my daughter back, worked do my DCFS case, any criminal charges, and I decided that methadone long-term was not what I wanted to do. So I worked with my counselor there, I worked with my treatment, and we came up with a plan to taper. And so I did that. And during that time, it was hard. Again, I mentioned that mindset, and I knew what I wanted. My end goal was that I wanted to not be on methadone. And so when I started to taper and it was too hard, I showed up at USARA, and I sat on the couch with Paisley, who was only a couple years old at that time. And I was like, I don't know where else to go, and this is the only place that's safe for me. They were really open and willing to accept me at any point in my life. I showed up there days after my daughter was removed, a hot mess, like probably just used a drug 5 minutes before I got there, and just out of it, not in my right mind. My daughter was just removed. I got evicted, and I lost my job within 3 days. So I just wasn't in a right state of mind at that time. And so to really lean on that support, and then they're still there today, working there is awesome. But just the fact that I felt so open and seen there, that was the biggest thing, again, in my life, is just being seen.
Seen and heard.
Yeah, and heard.
Right?
And that's a huge thing, is that I know that I stand in my power, say about like pain, right? We talked about the hospitals. It makes it hard to be truthful when you're being stigmatized and you're not being heard. So when I was in a lot of pain in February from giving birth, I advocated, and I said, I did not want painkillers, and now I'm in front of you being vulnerable and humbling myself because I'm in too much pain. And there was a lot of concern from people, and I'm like, it's harder for me to not be seen for my pain than it is for you to acknowledge, to be in the pain and to be given a narcotic to help with that, because I was given a narcotic to help with my pain, and I utilized it, and I leaned on my supports during that time. But it was that stigma even at the beginning of like, oh, well, are you sure you want this? And it's like, you not hearing that I'm in pain is more detrimental to my recovery than you saying, okay, here's this, how can I help you? You know?
Yeah, which would have been the right approach.
Yeah.
And again, and I'm not making excuses, but again, it's us not understanding, you know, because I would have done the same thing with Janan.
Yep.
I mean, I did do the same thing to Janan, you know, and a lot of us on the other side, I can't remember who I was talking with about a week ago. And it's like, all I kept hearing was, just stop. I'm like, oh yeah, shit, I said that a ton. Why can't you just stop? Come on, just frickin' stop.
Like the nail in the forehead thing,
Yeah. And it takes it, I don't know if it's the process, but it takes so much for us to open our eyes and get it. You know, the gal that we had on the show yesterday, she helps family members learn how to love with boundaries. And Janan and I had a pretty good conversation even last week about we've got to get back to more of our I statements because we've really pulled away from that. You know, this is how I feel, and instead of, you know, throwing those daggers at each other again. And it's a whole new communication process. And again, I'll go back, and I've said this many, many times, and I'll probably continue. It's like when Janan told me when I picked her up at Epic one weekend for one of her weekend stays, and I was being her therapist, you know, and she's like, for once, I wish you'd be my husband instead of my damn therapist. She was trying to get me to see, and I still had those frickin' blinders on. Even though it felt like I just got kicked in the crotch, I still had those blinders on. It took a couple years even after that for me to start realizing. It's like one day she came home and she's like, I've got some stuff to say. Or no, she called me and she's like just going off on all this stuff that's been going on. And for once, I think was probably the first time I sat and listened to her. And after she was done, I said, thank you for sharing this with me, but I'm the wrong person. Have you reached out to Tiffany? Have you reached out to Trish? Have you called someone? Because I know I will say the wrong thing because I'm not in your shoes. I don't know. And I don't want to go back, well, why don't you just do this? Because how the hell do I know? You know, so it's really helped. And it's great that you have USARA, a place to go to be seen and to be heard, and people that you can count on. And I mean, we all need that, right? All of us need it, not just people in recovery. We all frickin' need to be heard, and we all need to be seen.
Yes, agreed.
Even as a child.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No matter how old you are, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what? I'm a year away from 60, and my mom still treats me like I'm 6. And I'm honest, Mom, right? You still treat me like I'm 6. You know, and it's that should word. That's a word that we're working on getting rid of, getting it out of our vocabulary.
For sure.
It's like I was at a class one time, and the guy said, don't should on people.
Yep.
You know, and I threw a lot of shoulds on Janan, a ton. You should just do this, and you should just do that.
Fix it, right?
Well, hell, I was so lost myself. How the hell could I help her? You know, when I couldn't even help myself. You know, I think that's the mistake a lot of us on the other side. And again, that stigma that comes up. You know, so.
Yeah, and so I did want to touch on something. So I mentioned my criminal history. It was pretty lengthy.
Okay.
I started getting charges when I was 18. I don't know how many charges I have total. Several in the 40s, maybe 50s.
Oh, wow.
8 to 10 felonies.
Lose track after
Yeah,
so many. I don't know.
once I got my first felony, I was like, okay, whatever. So, but I encountered a lot of police officers over the years. I had mentioned the one when I was younger that was like, oh, don't do it, you're going to ruin her life. And my mom's like, okay, don't. Well, I had gotten arrested one time in Sandy, and I went to jail. This officer took me to jail. I was in jail for 5 days. My mom bailed me out, and I was home the next day. And again, 18, didn't really know my rights. I had this thought, oh, I have to do what officers say. I have to answer the door if they come to my house. I was still detoxing. Someone knocked on my door. It was an officer. I answered it. started talking to him, and I was like, well, like, I want to go to bed, and he's like, I need to search your room. So I was like, all right, cool. Had no idea at this time, right? And
right. So you didn't know.
Yeah, I had no idea, like, that I could say no, that, I just...
Call your mom.
Yeah, call my mom.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't my house. And so he went into my room, and I don't know exactly what was said, but the moral is I said, I want to go to bed. I need to go to sleep. And he said, the only way you're getting back in that bed is if I'm getting in it with you. And I remember what I was wearing that day specifically. I had braces on still. I mean, like, and so I just kind of like froze there, and I was like, didn't really know what to say. And then he was like, all right, well, I'll leave. I just want a hug. So I go up to give him a hug again. Now looking back, I'm like, why would I ever do that, But I go to give him a hug, and he kisses me on my neck. And like simultaneously, my mom comes like bursting through the front door, and we're back in my room. And so we come walking out, and she's like praising him. Oh, I wish Kayla's dad was like you, and like all this stuff, And he leaves, and my mom's just like looking at me, and I'm just like on the verge of tears, and she's like, what's wrong? And so I told her what happened. She called internal affairs, and we filed the case or whatever.
Go Mom.
Yeah, go Mom. That's a mom win right there.
Nice Mama Stacey.
Yeah. And so I went to jail again shortly after that, got out, and I tried to call to inquire about this officer, and they're like, nothing happened. Basically it was my fault. I was the one that initiated these things, and so I wasn't ever told.
Because you were on drugs.
Because I was on drugs. I was 18, all these things. Like,
and these
of course
officers
it was my fault.
know this.
Yes, exactly.
Right? They know it.
Exactly. And it's really ironic, though, because his GPS on his cop car had driven past my mom's house like 30-something times in like 3 days. But it was my fault. I was in jail, and so that's obviously my fault. So from age 18, I had a very, very negative experiences with officers. The one in Weber County was just making fun of me. The Sandy officer, I pled into felony drug court, got called a crack whore all the time by the bailiff. So like all these things, I was like, I can't trust these people. Like, why would I call them? Why would I want them? When I overdosed, it was always negative, all these things. And so I really disliked officers. I really disliked authority of any sort. And then going to jail and prison, that didn't necessarily help. I became more comfortable in that setting, though. I thrive in structure and like institutions. So now it's really hard for me to overcome that, and it's a constant battle to speak with officers or speak with authority. Tiffany could probably tell you many times I like panic in front of authority, and it's like, I'm not doing anything wrong right now, but I still have this fear that something's going to happen. I get pulled over for speeding. It's 5 cops and a dog. And it's like, I know I have a lengthy criminal history. However, like, that was several years ago,
Yeah.
And so it's pretty hard to, I love officers. I fully trust them. And however, it's still hard for me to confront and to talk to people when they're in that authority setting. And I guess looking back now, like officers, judges, nurses, all that, it's kind of led me to, be in this position.
Well, you can definitely understand why. And again, there's some good ones out there. They're not all like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I hope we all understand that.
Training.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the ones that kind of take advantage and know that they can get away with it because, it's almost kind of like the Sacklers, with the Oxy. When people started getting addicted, what did they do? They changed it. They're like, no, it's still not our drug, even though we know it is. It's not our drug. We're just going to blame it on the addicts. They switched it around.
Mm-hmm.
And of course society accepts it, right? And they knew that. They knew it. Yeah. So and we definitely just want, our audience to know we're not knocking all authority because there's definitely a lot of good ones, and
yes.
I know that's not what you were saying. We just want to make sure we let our audience know that there's some really good ones, because we had a gal on the show who has a daughter that's in prison, and she started this program, and the Tooele police have freaking taking it and running with it, and
awesome.
they're just like loving what this girl has has done, because it's helping so many. And I'd love to get them on the show to talk about this program.
Yeah, there's been
You know,
a
that
lot of
they're doing.
change. You know,
A lot.
It's
in all
education. That's what I was
departments.
saying,
Yeah,
like-
education, and the police
Yeah.
officers are now they're like our allies.
Yeah,
right?
for
And so-
sure.
And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, definitely. It all played a factor in my recovery, and also has taught me. And I definitely agree, like the education, and that's why I want to speak on it, because there are things that have definitely changed, and it's all about knowledge and being trauma informed. And like, okay, so maybe we take a different approach this time. You know, if it can hit one person, like that Tooele program, you know, like who can it help and who can it get to, and that's what it's about. Because again, like, yeah, I'm definitely not knocking any authority.
Well, and it's someone that believes in it.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
You have Amy. What's Amy's last name? The one that's done. What is it? Dashel. And then there's
I don't know.
Destiny. I spoke
Yes.
with
Yeah,
Destiny
yeah,
Garcia,
you're right.
the Clean Slate Utah.
Yeah.
You know, it's someone like that says, "Hey, it's time there's a change." You know, and they're fighting for
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
and it's working.
Yes.
It's working. It may not be as quick as we want it, but all it takes is one person to go, "Oh my gosh, yeah, why aren't we doing this?"
One
you know,
person, and then you join, and then
Yeah,
we keep
it
joining,
just-
and here we are.
it's
Yes.
that snowball effect, or
Yeah.
the yarn, or however you want to look at it. You know, so. Gosh, this whole show has been great, and I know we've got a time constraint, because I know we could go another half hour, easy. As my buddy Robbie from Best Buddies, he always says, easy peasy. So easy peasy, we could go another half hour, right?
Yeah.
The information that you have shared, and being vulnerable, Kayla, and sharing your story, you know, it takes a lot of guts to come on a show and say, hey, this is who I was. It's not who I am today.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and this is what I've accomplished. And it goes to show that you made your mind up, and you went for it, and you've worked your butt off, and you're still continuing to work your butt off, you know, to get to a place. I mean, you're looking at now of, let me look at my notes here. You got a strong desire for criminal justice, for reform, and advocating, you know, for people in treatment. And you are a peer recovery coach, and you're taking everything from your past that took you down a pretty dark road. And we were talking about it before the show, even how you have to travel those dark roads. And now you're putting a lot of light on it, and you're out there helping other people. And for you to have that strong desire to want to go out and help other people that have kind of put on the same shoes that you had on at one time in your life, man, we have to have people like yourself out there to do this. You know, I mean, seriously. And I get emotional sometimes talking about this. We had a gal on our show out of Arizona, Jennifer Seitzer. She's 19 years clean, and she has a son that's battling addiction right now. But she had a gal tell her in church that those that have not been strong enough to beat their addiction, God has called them back home so he can take them out of their pain and their misery. There are those who have had the strength and dug themselves out. They are now God's angels that are walking the earth, now helping others to become those angels. And I thought that was such a cool flippin' way of looking at it. And again, that's how I see you two lovely ladies. You're out there helping so many other people. You know, you've battled, you've gone through the war, and you probably still go through it at times, you know, but you're now out there helping other people win their battle. And I think it's just so frickin' awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good job, Kayla.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to share with our audience before, and if there's something you really want to get to the audience, look right in that camera right there with that beautiful smile of yours. Yeah.
Well, no, I don't know if there's anything specific.
Okay.
I just want to say, like, overcoming stigma. I overcame stigma that people were placing on me, and I'm overcoming the stigma I place on other people. And that's ultimately why I wanted to bring this up, because as someone who's suffered with substance use disorder, I've had a lot of stigma placed, but I've also placed stigma on people for the way that I've been treated by them. And so to break past that is work on both ends. And so the only way, in my eyes, that's going to be addressed is if we address it, if we recover loudly and bring it up, because it is sometimes uncomfortable to talk about stigma. And I probably didn't say it all right today or correctly, but I'm changing and educating and learning myself, and that's huge.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was great.
Man, that's
You didn't have anything else to say.
do you want to pick it up and kind of drop the mic? Because that was definitely a mic drop, I think.
I feel like this is pretty big to do it with, so it might be a little,
Brad may not like it either,
yeah.
so he's like, easy on the mics. Tiffany, is there something you'd like to share?
Well, we see you.
Thanks.
I see you, and I love you. And we see you.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all.
Definitely.
Everyone deserves to be seen. Any arena.
Yeah, amen to that. Definitely amen to that. And again, I thank God for my wife being in recovery, because it's given me a chance to open my eyes and look at things through a different lens. Totally. I mean, if you would have asked me 2.5 years ago, if I would have thought I'd be doing what I'm doing right now, I'd tell you, yeah, you're freaking up in the night. No way in hell. Even when I went to Recovery Day for the very first time in 2021, I was sitting there with my buddy JD, and I'm like, I would have never, ever thought I'd be somewhere like this, ever, my whole life. And now here I've gone to 2 of them, and this one this past year, oh my gosh, that was so freaking awesome. That was huge. That was bigger than the one I went to in 2021. It was great. And we got a couple people coming on the show from Recovery Day, and it's just awesome. So, ladies, thank you so much again for your time and for coming on the show and sharing a story. And I would love to probably do another show on stigma, because I really do believe it's needed. Maybe that's something we can do when we start our live show, is just do a show just on the stigma part of things.
Language,
yeah,
language.
a lot. Yeah, and the language. I think that would be a really good live show, because language is definitely huge. So awesome. Well, guys, again, thank you for everything. Again, we could have gone on for a long time. Thank you to all our sponsors. We've got a ton of you. Again, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for all our listeners, it wasn't for all our incredible guests and guest co-hosts. Resilience Talk Network, Brad, everyone, thank you so much for all that you do for us. We are continuing to grow. I'm still shocked. We've gone over a year and a half, I believe now, Brad, and 100 and something shows, and I'm looking forward to hitting another 100 here next summer, because I know it's coming. And you heard me say something about a live show. We're getting ready to start some live shows, so you guys will start seeing us on Wednesday nights about 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for live shows. Keep an eye on social media, because we're doing our best to get some more little clips out there, and also letting you guys know what shows are coming up. So again, thank you all. We greatly appreciate it. And remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.